Welcome, everyone. We're going to wait a couple of more minutes for people to join us, but great to see everyone. Lots of familiar faces. Well, welcome everyone. It is great to have such a wonderful turnout for this event. Some of you know me, but I'm Jack Miner. I am Vice Provost of Enrollment Management at University of Cincinnati, but I'm also the director of the SEM conference. And this session is actually an extension of SEM. One of the things that we're doing this year at SEM is really trying to create more of a focus around increasing the number of women in senior leadership roles in strategic enrollment management. So we wanted this webinar to be an opportunity to not just talk about that topic, but also remind everybody of some of the great opportunities that are coming up at SEM. So if you're not already planning to go, I really encourage you to do that. So in addition to some of the great folks that you're going to hear from today that are doing sessions at SEM, we also have a really wonderful pre-conference workshop on allyship, helping women rise in SEM roles across the country. And some of you know the name Dr. Melanie Ho. She is just an incredible author and researcher around this topic. And we're really fortunate to have her come in and be one of our pre-conference speakers, but she's also doing some sessions throughout the conference as well. We're also really thrilled that Dara Starr Tucker, and I will actually put a link in the chat about her. Dara is going to be our opening speaker for the SEM conference. So again, a really great empowerment message. She is really phenomenal, especially around the divergence of race and higher education, and just does a phenomenal job. So I think you're going to do or be able to see some really great things at this year's SEM conference. So I want to, with that, remind you that SEM is open, so you can register for SEM. One other thing I will remind you about, along the same lines of women in leadership roles across enrollment management, it is also important to have women in leadership roles across ACRO. And it is also voting season for ACRO. So if you have not yet done so, I also encourage you to dig out your ACRO ballot and look for opportunities to support folks and learn more about the candidates there as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cassandra Moore, a good friend and a great ACRO leader. Cassandra.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Jack always brings the energy, and I'm an admissions professional, and energy is a job requirement. I always say if I have to take a pulse, you can't work in admissions. So thank you, Jack. I'm Cassandra Moore, President-elect of ACRO, and my day job is Director of Enrollment Development and Admissions at Anne Arundel Community College in Maryland. We are here today, and you can tell I'm excited, to give you an appetizer, to wet your whistle so you will want to know more about advancing women in SEM and take advantage of the related sessions during our ACRO SEM conference. And Jack did a great job of highlighting two Dr. Ho is phenomenal. And we have a panelist here, Dr. Kruzmark, who is also presenting the impact of women's leadership on access and equity in global higher education. And we'll be talking more about that later. ACRO is very, very interesting. I'm just reinforcing what Jack said in advancing women in SEM. We recognize that women in SEM are uniquely qualified to share their vision, planning, lessons learned, including what they would have told their younger selves. So we have some wonderful panelists. Who are they? So we're going to ask you to tell us your name, your day job, and your engagement with ACRO. And I'm going to start off with Dr. Tammy Agard.
I should have anticipated with a last name of Agard that I would probably be first. But thank you so much, Cassandra, and welcome to everyone to this webinar. My name is Tammy Agard. I'm currently serving as a managing consultant with ACRO Consulting. I've been in this role for almost a year now, but I spent 30 plus years in higher education, kind of working my way up through the registrar role and then into enrollment management leadership. Most recently, I was the Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management at the University of Florida before I stepped away and doing consulting work now. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Dr. Kruzmark, I'm sorry, next.
Thank you, Cassandra. I am Dr. Stephanie Kruzmark. I currently serve as the Vice President of Enrollment Management and Student Affairs at San Francisco Bay University in Fremont, California, in the Bay Area. I've been involved with ACRO since 2005 when I started as an Assistant Director in Admissions and have worked my way up to the VP level. This is my fourth VP installment so far, and looking forward to the conversation.
And next, but not least, Dr. Davis.
There we go. Hello, everyone. Dr. Wendolyn Davis. In my day job, I'm an executive director of Pathway Alignment at Chattanooga State Community College in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and also worked my way up. I started out as a education training specialist. I won't say how many years ago, but not that long ago, and have been able to move up to a position which is now a position on the president's cabinet at Chat State. In terms of ACRO leadership, I am currently chair of Black Caucus, have previously served as the co-lead for the Technology and Transfer Summit over the last 2 years, as well as chair of the Nominations and Elections Committee, and then various memberships, different committees within ACRO, as well as writing for Connect and just anything I can get involved with when it comes to ACRO. So, and I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So let's start with a few facts. Women are well represented in higher education, but women are still underrepresented and face barriers at the most senior level. Wage disparities persist, and it is more difficult for women of color. I believe an important takeaway, we call this the appetizer, the wet your whistle. So you'll come to SEM and participate in all these sessions, attend all these sessions. So your takeaway appetizer for me, one of the important ones is how women in senior enrollment management positions navigated their path to leadership, share their leadership identity and how it was formed, and share how they communicated their leadership identity. So let's start with, I'd like for each one of you to describe how you navigate your path to leadership. Dr. Kruzmark, would you like to start?
Sure, I will start. So similar to Dr. Davis, I started and worked my way up from the bottom. So I started as an assistant director in professional program admissions and took different positions across the country. I was willing to sacrifice my location, my family commitments to really pursue an opportunity at institutions that were willing to give me a chance. My first VP position was at Trinity Washington University, a historic women's college in Washington, D.C. And under Pat McGuire, who's still the sitting president, I was able to actually move from an AVP, an assistant vice president, to a vice president within 2 weeks. She saw that potential in me. And that really started my career off in terms of breaking that glass ceiling, getting unstuck from the sticky floor in terms of getting opportunity to serve in a senior leadership role in strategic enrollment management. But again, that came with a lot of sacrifice. I've worked on both coasts, and I've worked in all 4 time zones across the country in order to make that happen. San Francisco Bay University is the 10th institution that I've worked for. So I've had an opportunity to experience a lot of different types of institutions, size, populations, in terms of students. And my ultimate goal, to be transparent, is to become a college president at some point.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Dr. Wendy?
Well, as I previously mentioned, so started out actually not intending to be in higher education. The education training specialist was a position at a community college, which was also workforce development, which was my initial path, and decided that I really loved higher ed. And in terms of navigating, so I went from that position to an assistant director of transfer student services, and then director of Transfer Center at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And I had to come to some of those same conclusions. Is I had to leave where I was. So I'm born and raised in Michigan and worked all my life until I moved to Tennessee, and realized by watching other trajectories of those who ended up in leadership, as most of them had to move from institution to institution, the track from one institution going up, because people stay there for 30, 40 years, wasn't there. And so just navigating, having to move, relocate, make some decisions, also making sure that I stood out. I had to believe in me before anybody else would believe in me, because if I didn't believe that if I didn't show that I believed I had the ability, no one else would. And so I had to work on myself. ACRO helped a lot with that. So having leadership positions within ACRO, I was the president of MACRO before leaving Michigan. And ACRO actually is what helped to really build up my confidence and believe that I could do the jobs that I'm doing now. And so again, moving institutions from director of a transfer center to now an executive director, an executive level cabinet position, and then finding the networks. And I use an old saying, I can't take credit for it. Someone else said it. It's not who you know, but who knows you. And so making sure that I had a network of people who knew me and knew what I was capable of, who could vouch for me.
Wonderful. And Tammy, share your path too.
Well, very similar to what you've already heard. I never thought that my life would be in higher education. I was kind of a trailing spouse along the way, in many aspects, but started out as a student worker and advising, and then from there moved into transfer evaluation and in the admissions office. So spent a little bit of time there. Also spent some time following my husband when he was getting his degree in the athletic department. So I actually went in athletics and spent some time there. So seeing a different side of the university. That was at Washington State University. But then when I settled into registrar work, I thought I had found my home and really started progressing up through the ranks and the willingness to take on a project, be a leader in a small way, and then show my leadership chops in a more broader way to the institution. So saying yes to programming the degree audit, or being the functional lead on a SIS implementation. Saying yes to those smaller things then increases that visibility across. And then I became a registrar, and while I was registrar, there was a vacancy in financial aid. And so they asked me to be interim director of financial aid. So I did both at the same time. And I
Wow.
never thought I'd go into financial aid. That was kind of the third rail, stay away from financial aid. I was good where I was, but I would say I fell in love with financial aid as well. And so having that balance with registrar and financial aid work and then some previous admissions experience, I kind of had all three legs of the enrollment management stool. So then that prepared me. What I thought for was going from the University of Wyoming, small size public. I thought, oh, I'll get a job as a registrar at a larger public institution, or maybe enrollment management at a small one. Well, then I looked on the ACRO website and there was a AVP for enrollment at the University of Florida. I thought there is no way, there was a snowball's chance in Gainesville that I was going to get this job. But I thought, well, what could they do? They could tell me no. And so I applied for it, and I guess the rest is history. I spent about almost 10 years there and loved every minute of it. So I guess kind of, if we're going into little nuggets of advice, one of the things, in addition to that ACRO experience, I was a regional president. I served on the ACRO board for a while, and that networking piece, I would say yes to some of those things that might be out of your comfort zone. So even if it's maybe a small project, being a leader in a small way, or it could be even shifting lanes a little bit and taking on that interim piece. And
I love this, saying yes, because so many times when these opportunities arise, we're in our heads too much and telling ourselves why we shouldn't do something. Just say yes, we'll give you the support. So this is great. So let's talk about this a little bit. What role did intentionality, taking charge, risk, courage, and critical analysis play in your journey? You can address one or all. Intentionality, taking charge, risk, courage, and critical analysis. So just jump in, whoever want to start talking about how did these impact your journey? Or did one of these things really put you on a path that you need to be on?
Well, I'll start with intentionality. What I started to notice as I worked my way up the strategic enrollment management ladder was when I looked around the table in terms of who was there representing student perspective and who was making decisions. It wasn't someone that looked like me 9 times out of 10. And so I had that intentionality to really say yes, to be able to take risk, to relocate, to really put myself out there in terms of applying for positions that may have seemed above and beyond where I was at the current time. Yeah, I would just say being intentional about what your dream is and knowing that if you put energy and effort towards it, you can make anything happen.
Wonderful, wonderful. Is there anything that resonate with you, Gwendolyn?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think all of the above, the intentionality, really determining that I wanted my voice to be heard. And when I saw gaps or things that weren't being done, instead of saying somebody needs to do that, was to intentionally step up and say, I can do that, but I had to know I could do it. And stepping up and doing that. And I think that was also some of the risk, is sometimes you step on toes and ruffle some feathers. But you have to be vocal and you have to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. So even using research and things to support when I would say, okay, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, and also the risk with moving. So with each move, so Michigan to Tennessee, I left some family members behind, and that was a big move. And then going from Knoxville to now Chattanooga, I left my last child behind. So, which is okay. He's an adult, he's fine. But even that risk is changing cities, changing locations, not having people around. But again, being very intentional about what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, and what I wanted to be. And then that included making sure that if I felt like I had a weakness for a job that I wanted, that I would figure out how to fill that, how to learn what it is I needed to learn so that I could say I could do it and be honest. about whether or not I could do that job.
Wonderful. Dr. Agard, which one of these resonate with you?
Well, I would say probably risk, and I'm going to add reflection on it.
Right.
Because I think even as a young professional, like I said, saying yes to doing something like a degree audit where you're transforming an institution from going from fully paper to an electronic world, and kind of dragging people along, and I have it in my head that, oh, they'll just see the light and I'll be just such a wonderful Pied Piper and everybody will follow me and I'll be great. Well, that didn't work that way. I really neglected the change process and the depth of that change. And so as I did the next project, I reflected back on that. And I used that experience that I had, which in some ways, I think I was burned in effigy on campus somewhere during that. But using that experience and that reflection to say, I need to be better about change. I need to learn more about the change process. And so then going, like Gwendolyn said, going behind and doing the homework behind it, so making sure that you're prepared for it for that next time, so that it doesn't, you don't have that same kind of negative experience, but being able to take that risk, even though there was, balancing the negative, but there was a lot of positive with it as well.
Creating buy-in is difficult. I think sometimes we underestimate what it takes psychologically to move people to shift them from one way of thinking to the other. This is great. It's important as a leader to show up and for your interactions to prove your readiness to lead. Show up and prove your readiness to lead so that your leadership shines during good and challenging times, right? So your leadership identity is defined by you, but it can and may be defined by those who work for and with you. What is your leadership identity? How was it developed? And I'll start with Dr. Kruzmark.
I am really about the adage that I would never ask my team to do anything that I haven't done before. I think working my way up the ladder had so much benefit and value to add to my leadership style. My identity, I've been told from my staff that reports to me as recently as this morning that I inspire people. And I think I inspire people by being very transparent, meeting them where they're at, seeing the talents and gifts that they bring to the table each day and wanting to help to cultivate and grow that. And I would say that translates not just to my staff, but to prospective students as well. We're in the business of human lives. And I think that's such a honor and privilege to be a part of. And so I really humble myself in terms of how I show up as a leader, and always, even though I'm more disconnected from the student experience as a VP, never forgetting that walking the walk and talking the talk in terms of what it is like to be a student at the institutions that I work at.
Thank you. And Wendy?
And my leadership identity is lead as is needed, because different circumstances, different situations require a different leader. Yeah. But I'll say the foundation of my leadership, especially with folks on my team, was that it was more of a family. These are, folks that you are spending a huge portion of your life with. And to really develop a trusting relationship, an open relationship, and a reciprocal relationship, it had to be more family. I never wanted to be a boss or a manager or a supervisor. But in kind of the same thing as what Kruzmark, yes, said, was also not asking my staff to do anything that I wasn't willing to do. And that included, for me, in a pinch, learning how to evaluate and articulate credit in on-base and banner, just like everybody else, to say, I can jump in here, I can learn it. There is no position that can be considered like less than just because someone has a certain title. So they knew that I trusted them and they could trust me and come to me with everything, kids, home, dog, cats, work, whatever. We kept it a really open communication.
It's really kind of called leading with empathy, isn't it? When you think about it from a family perspective.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
tell me about your leadership identity.
Well, I would say it's a blend of lots of different things. I love what's already been said. One of my strengths, my top strengths for strengths, is maximizer. And so I love to maximize other people. That's where I get my greatest joy, is to make sure that the folks I'm working with are able to do the best job that they can and can be as successful as possible and can achieve their goals. I think whether that's me providing support. I heard a leader once say, you pay attention to the blimps: birth, loss, illness, marriage, and promotion. Pay attention to those 5 things with your people. And so celebrate or empathize or mourn with them, whatever it might be, but pay attention to the blimps in people's lives. And so I took that very to heart, because I care about people. I want them to be successful. And I think, as we're all successful, then that builds that relationship of trust. I heard trust that's such a huge thing. And I heard Stephen Covey talk about the whole trust relationship. It's a combination of competence and character. And if you're high in character and low in competence, people won't trust you. If you're high in competence and low in character, people won't trust you. And so being able to take both of those and be high in both character and competence and build that trust and then impart that to others that you work with. I would say that's my identity as a leader.
And someone in the chat asked you to repeat what you said about blimps and define it.
Yes. The first one is birth. So if someone has a child or adopts a child, so birth, loss. So if there is a death in the family, and it could be a pet, we need to make sure that we're taking care of that as well. The I stands for illness. So if someone has been out sick, either short or long term, just recognizing that you hope they're better and paying attention to that. M could be marriage. Now that stands for marriage, but it could be a relationship. Acknowledging and celebrating that transition to a new relationship in your life. And then P is promotion. So as someone is working their way up, and it could be just small steps or it could be large steps, celebrating that as well. So it's blimp, and then the S just is plural. There's nothing that goes with S. Unless you want to add something, you can put that in the chat if you have another one that we can add to the blimps.
Thank you. And what I'm also hearing is authenticity. And that is very important part of this. So I'm going to start with Tammy. Tammy, as a senior leader in strategic enrollment management and as a managing actual consultant, your insight is extremely important. Help us by drawing on your own successes and work in strategic enrollment management, change management, innovation and planning, to share how your work can help women in SEM meet challenges and embrace opportunities. And I don't mind reading it again.
So I would say one of the things that I would say with respect to innovation and change management, and especially with women, don't be afraid to learn to speak techie. And I say that in a way because oftentimes it's oftentimes that you're the only female at the table. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about technical, if you're working with your technical teams or working with IT on large projects, oftentimes you're the only woman there. And so, which makes it really nice because you don't have to wait in line at the bathroom, but it can be a little intimidating. And so learn to speak techie so that you understand and can relate to them. So that I think is with respect to innovation. And I also want to share, and this is something I'm going to say in my session. So those of you that want to come to my session at SEM on the secret sauce, I'm going to talk about the power of innovation or iteration. It's okay to iterate. You know, when we think about the apps on our phones, they have updates all the time. They roll out with an app, and it's not going to be perfect. So don't think that you have to do things perfectly, because women oftentimes get weighed down by that need to be perfect. And then with respect to change and that whole change process, really helping individuals understand. So that takes some learning on our parts about what it takes to navigate that change from a human perspective, what they're engaged in, and then helping them to navigate through that change process.
And are we saying that we don't need to let great get in the way of good, or the other way around?
Absolutely.
Because we're perfectionists.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yes. Well, let's change it up a little bit. Because as an admissions person, we're trying to be persuasive, and depending on the audience and what we're trying to do. So let's talk about the head and the heart space, the internal work that may have to happen to navigate your path to leadership. So when we talk about the head and heart space, did you have to redo any internal plumbing? And that is to move some mental pipes around in order to rid yourself of waste of those things that were getting in the way of your career progression. And if so, please share.
You know, I will start with a phrase that may sound familiar to some of us that are on the call, and that is imposter syndrome. I very much had that when I decided to pursue my PhD and made an intention to become a VP, and am still dealing with that, thinking about becoming a college president. But I just want to say to those of us that are on the call that you are worthy. You bring so much great value. Let that thought process go. I had a woman that was a president at University of Oregon say, be like a duck, let that go and flow over you. Don't take it personal. So I would say imposter syndrome has been something that I've had to overcome in my head, and just know in my heart that I deserve to be there, and I'm of value. Yeah.
Anybody else like to share?
I'll say the biggest change I think I had to make between head and heart was when you move up in leadership, diplomacy. You have to understand diplomacy. You have to understand that you cannot get away from politics. You cannot get away from bureaucracy. You have to learn how to navigate those waters, because it comes with the territory as you move up in leadership. And sometimes middle management, or even below middle management, you can advocate and argue from one aspect, but as you move up, you realize why those in leadership end up making the decisions that they make. It's never as simple as it seems when you get to that level. So be open to it and grow into it, and understand that the world is a lot bigger than what it seems like until you get to that next level.
I also think sometimes, especially if you're progressing in your leadership journey at the same institution, you have that head and heart. Sometimes you can find a new peer group that's at the same level, and that can be difficult, because people think you're leaving them behind. And so navigating that, I think that was the struggle that I had. And I had to kind of, you talk about replumbing your thought process, and saying, how do I still be friendly with individuals who are part of my former peer group, but not having the friendships and having to establish that different level because of the types of things that you have to do in a leadership role, and that appropriate separation that you have to have from individuals. And so I think that can be a kind of a difficult challenge because your heart still cares about those people, but you really need to make sure that you're selecting your peers that are at the same level that you are.
Excellent. Well, we know that this journey is more difficult for all women, no matter the country or the continent. This is why Stephanie's session, Lifting As We Climb, the impact on access and equity in global higher education, is so important. And I encourage all of you to attend. Stephanie, your session description speaks of women leaders making great strides in national leadership and public policy, including access to equity in higher education by underserved, underrepresented, and under-resourced, I really like that part, populations within their respective countries. Give us a taste of what those in attendance will gain and take back from your session. It'll be exciting to hear about what you're going to share. Just give them a little taste so they know what they're in for.
Yeah, it's really, thank you, Cassandra. It's really looking at the journey of becoming a female leader and realizing that female leadership transcends country, it transcends religion, sexual orientation, gender orientation. It is something that that I believe that we saw, that my co-author and I were really inspired during COVID to actually write this article that I'll be presenting on at the conference soon. But it really is about looking at the strides that we've made, but also looking at the systems that are in place to, what do I want to say, limit our ability to pursue leadership positions and have impact on our communities.
Okay, great. And Gwendolyn, you are and have served in several leadership roles in ACRO. And I know that some of your work on behalf of ACRO has focused on amplifying Black women's voices in academia. Mm-hmm. Tell us how this applies to the women leaders in strategic enrollment management. What do they have in common?
Everything. I'm trying to have a good way. I think the voices, especially for women of color, kind of going back to what I said before, that the whole diplomacy, the politics, the bureaucracy, mm-hmm. learning how to navigate that in the skin of a person of color looks different. It can feel different. And also what Tammy said, though, but having a group of peers who you can share those discussions with, get viewpoints from, get points from. How did you handle this? How did you handle that? So having a network of people who are at that level, at a higher level, to help understand maybe some of the things that you may not be understanding, but also I think broadening our minds as some things are related to where we stand as our person or people of color, but not everything. Not everything is related to the skin that you're in. Some of it is just the way it works, how you have to deal, strategize, negotiate, and kind of navigate the space that you're in, but being really I'm gonna use a church lady term, using discernment to understand when it's something that may have to do with the skin you're in, or it may just have to do with the work that you're doing, or the arena, or the level of folks, and the lack of representation, and you may be the only one or one of a few at these levels.
And I'll
Can I answer the question?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Did I hear someone want to ask a question? Okay. Well, let me say this. When I think about what you're talking about, I'm also, and I kind of lost my train of thought because I heard something blur in, but we'll get back to that. I'm also thinking about amplifying voices and how to navigate that. I like what you said about discernment. I like what you said about sometimes it's not about your skin color. But one thing I challenge my team to do, because my team comes from various social economic backgrounds, and they have not known poverty. And in a community college, you have all kinds of students. So one of the things I've asked them to do and try to help them do is to expand the prism of their lived experience. Now that's a challenge, right? Because your lived experience is what it is. But being exposed to people who didn't have the same life experiences, and being able to embrace that difference and understand. We talk about the language of poverty in my office. What does that sound like when somebody doesn't have something? They don't say, I don't have this thing. So expanding the prism of lived experience also amplifies the person's voice that you're talking to, trying to persuade and get to enroll in your college. Did I hear that somebody wanted to ask a question? Did you all hear that? Okay.
I heard it. I think
Definitely heard it. Don't know who it was though.
Okay. Well, they're welcome to ask a question if they like. Just open your mic up.
I actually heard Gwendolyn say, did I answer the question? And I think you heard her and thought somebody was asking a question.
Okay.
I believe that was the communication.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it. I don't want to miss,
You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Stephanie, you have an interesting resume with broad leadership experience, including having worked at the School of Theology. I thought that was interesting. So how has your leadership been, you touched on it, but how has your leadership been shaped by these experiences?
Each and every institution I've worked at has really been mission driven. And by that, I've worked at a Buddhist inspired institution, historically women's college, and experiential education college. It really has shaped me in terms of realizing the diversity and broadness of higher education, that higher education really can meet anyone where they're at and can open doors in terms of where they want to go for their dreams. It also has made me, I would say the word is very chameleon-like. I can navigate and work in varying different community cultures. And I think I would use the words of wisdom that one of my mentors gave to me, and that is try, if you're willing to take that risk, try to get exposure to as many different types of institutions as possible. It really does expand your ability to be a leader as a strategic enrollment management professional or other educational leadership roles. And so I think that it has given me the ability to go anywhere, really. And I think I have that free passport now because I have worked at 10 different institutions and I've taken those risks to relocate. That's just one journey. I'm not suggesting everyone does that, but that's just one journey that you can have to really expand your mindset.
Great. This is great. You have an interesting resume. One of my favorite quotes is, women should surround themselves with people who will mention your name in a room full of opportunities. And I have my circle. So I'm asking each of you to tell me who mentioned you in a room full of opportunities and how did this advance your career? And you may not even know that you were mentioned, but if you do know, please share.
Well, I'll start there. I have a list. And I actually think a lot of the folks on the list are acro folks. So actually you, Cassandra, and Roz Perry, and Jackie Carter. Oh my gosh. There's a whole list of a lot of acro folks. I think Sasha Suzuki, and she's on here. So a lot of my acro network has mentioned my name and opened the door to a lot of possibilities and invitations to do things that I probably didn't even know were there until they mentioned my name and say, hey, ask her, see if she'll do it. So, and Jack is included in that list.
Okay, and Tammy?
Wow, I agree. It's normally a lot of different people, and I love what Wendy said about having your acro colleagues, because oftentimes I think I was closer to the people in acro than I was to people at my own institution, because they understood my role. I was able to leverage that. And so as my career has progressed, I will say though, I had a vice president for enrollment management. Actually, she was student affairs, but then had enrollment management under her. And she's the one who tapped me to be the interim director of financial aid and believed that I could do it. Or maybe I was just the last person in the room. Everybody else said no. I don't know that. But she, after I finished that role, and I thought I needed to move on to advance. She's the one who said to me, you need to look at strategic enrollment management roles, in addition to pure registrar roles, and decide which way you want to go. And so I think she challenged my thought process about where my career trajectory was leading. And she saw something in me that I didn't really even recognize at the moment, about how I could perhaps change lane what I was currently doing. And so I'll forever be grateful to her for seeing that in me and mentioning my name, not just as a reference, but also on the campus where I had been working.
Dr. Cruzmark?
You know, this is a tough question, but for me, and I would say that probably my current president that I work with, our career trajectories have kind of been aligned. I first started working with him at Santa Clara University when he was a dean of the School of Education and Counseling Psychology, and I was his assistant dean of marketing and enrollment. And we've just built a relationship over the last decade where I watched him grow into a college president. He's very much been a mentor. And so when there was an opportunity for him to come to our current institution of San Francisco Bay University to really transform and rebuild an institution by disrupting higher education, he tapped me on the shoulder to come and lead. And so I like to think that in circles, if there is an opportunity at some point for me to become a college president, that if he comes across an opportunity, he would mention my name. Yeah.
Love it. As a leader, what advice would you give your younger self? Mine would be get out of my way, but what would yours be?
I think mine would be kind of the same thing, is stop doubting yourself. You know you can do it, and stop pushing other people in front of you. You know, stop being the support and be the lead.
Yeah. Anybody else like to share?
I would say I would probably tell my younger self that the challenges, I learned more from that than the successes.
Yeah.
And so embrace the opportunity to perhaps try and maybe have it not be quite as successful as I thought. Give myself a little bit of grace that's going to happen, and embrace the what I would say maybe the stumbles as much as I celebrate the successes.
Right. Stephanie?
Yeah, I firmly believe with everything that has been said already. I really would say that it's about using the opportunity to see everything as a learning experience, and really embracing the journey, and realizing that sometimes it's not about the destination, it's about really being present and having that opportunity to see yourself transform, or how you react to certain situations. And some advice that former president gave to me was really balancing that heart, something that we mentioned before, that heart and mind in terms of our passion for student success, and realizing that sometimes that comes with navigating the decisions that are made at the leadership table, and really balancing, developing what she said was a thick skin. And I wasn't okay with that. That really was I had many tears and many conversations with friends and family about different decisions that were made at the leadership table that impacted student experience that I didn't always agree with, but it is learning to embrace that process.
Great. At the beginning of each day, I identify one success. At the end of each day, I identify one success. It doesn't matter if it's large or small, but it's my boost in the mornings, my sustainer during the evenings, and a great promoter of a success mindset. How do you define success? And I'm going to talk to Wendy first.
was trying to think of what's a good way to say that. Did I get anything accomplished during the day? Even if it was one thing of a list of 10, did I get anything accomplished? Did I help anybody in the process? Was I able to answer any questions? And did I use my time wisely? Those are how I look at each of my days.
And Tammy?
I think there's a general who said that you should make your bed every morning. And he said that because by doing that, you know that you will have accomplished at least one thing during the day. But so if we think that more broadly with respect to success, what are we doing that helps us to, metaphorically make our bed every day? And whether that be, in my experience, I love learning things. And so if I've learned something that day, I consider that a success. And so that's where I would probably put my focus is on learning.
Stephanie?
Yeah, this might be a little bit broad, but I think it really is about what Wendy mentioned is one of the aspects that she mentioned in terms of, have I made a difference in someone's life today? Have I made an opportunity available to someone? Have I broken down a barrier or gotten rid of a challenge so that they can proceed and their success? I think that's how I really define my success on a daily basis.
And are people better for being in your presence, in your orbit?
In some ways we say, did we leave it better than when we found it too, and other ways. This has been a wonderful discussion. I want to thank you. Let's look at the chat here. I just want to make sure that I pay attention. Relocation friend. Thank you, Rosalind. I see. Okay, Legion Petition. Thank you, Marissa. You all can just open your mics and ask some questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to Molly. Any questions? And thank you, Yasmin. I appreciate it. So I'm going to turn this over to Molly McDermott Fallon, the chair of the ACWA Women's Caucus. Thank you for your time, professionals, leaders. This was a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I want to thank the panel for the conversation and thoughtfulness and answers. I'm excited to share information about the Women's Caucus, which was founded in 2018. The Vibrant community is dedicated to empowering women across the spectrum. We aim to foster professional development, networking, scholarship, and leadership skills. Whether you're looking to advance your career, connect with like-minded peers, or find support in navigating your current work environment, the Women's Caucus is here for you. Join us in making a difference in driving forward the future of women's leadership and empowerment. I hope to see you all at the next caucus gathering. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Jack.
Thank you all so much, especially the panelists. And I will say, I've known some of these people for literally decades, and I've been able to learn so much from the four of them today. It has just been absolutely wonderful. So a huge thanks to our panelists, especially Cassandra, for doing such a great job leading this conversation. And really wonderful to see all of you. Great to see so many familiar faces here. And I really hope to see all of you in Boston in just literally less than 2 months. So hope you have a great rest of the day, and thanks a lot. Bye-bye.